Hey, man. There you go. Hey, look, we're live. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to start the radio show in just a couple minutes, or a minute-ish, maybe 20, 35
New
seconds.
system. I'm trying to figure it out myself.
That's all right. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. That's Chicago you're hearing there. Hi, chat room. And Johnny Million is with me. He's wearing his own merch, which I think, is usually a party foul, but I'll allow it.
Thank you. It's 100% for promotion.
Yeah, that's as it should be. It worked for Lenny from Kingdom Come. I think I told you the story.
1 minute left, guys.
Thank you. Lenny from Kingdom Come used to always come into Jerry's Deli in L.A. and he was always wearing a Kingdom Come T-shirt.
Kingdom Come merch?
Always wearing his own merch. Again, most of the time a party foul. But like I said, we'll allow it.
Coffee?
I don't think so. It might have gotten him late a couple of times, which would trigger the wearing of it all the time. That would be my guess.
Jesus, Lisa Mia Moore is throwing down with a super chat before we're even live.
Thank you, Lisa Mia Moore. I can't see them, so you're going to have to because I still haven't. The event list thing is only limited to. Anyways, you'll have to.
I have the same trouble. Yeah, my event list doesn't show everything I want to see. Hello,
right,
motherfucker.
Hi. There we go.
And people on the stream greet each other with a sound drop that I've got in there of a.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, your comedian and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Oh my, the week we've had in the world of Trump legal troubles, it got as gross as you would expect. I managed to find the entire Trump deposition that they released of 48 minutes of it from the E. Jean Carroll case. I'm going to cover that on my Monday show.
Okay.
But dear Lord, I think the big standout moment, and many people have already seen it, is where Donald Trump, right after saying that E. Jean Carroll was not his type, not my type, and neither are you, lady. You're not even worth my time to be grotesque.
You are. You know what you are? You're too ugly for me to sexually assault.
Right. Yes. That's that. He wanted points for that.
Yeah.
Right after that moment, do you know that he mistook E. Jean Carroll for Marla Maples? He pointed her out in the photograph where they met and said, "That's my wife."
I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I've been racking my brain trying to think of a worse trap you could find yourself in as a man in that moment.
Ooh,
saying,
Hal Vickery came through with a
Hal Vickery, thank you.
Chat
Celebrating
Donald Trump's week.
Yes, his weakness week. The pick was not Marley. It was Ivana, and he called E. Jean Carroll. Yes, that was not his wife. And I think all men fear a moment, perhaps, and it may be occasionally the broad-minded lady out there where they hold up a picture of their anniversary and go, "Remember when I met you at this party? I think this is the first picture of us meeting." And,
holy moly! I'm sorry, Wes just gifted 50.
Oh, Wes, thank you so much. Thank you, because we need the support.
He's hiding as WW.
Yeah, so he's
I
allowed.
You, Wes.
We'll allow it.
You can't hide that smile from me.
Well spotted. That you have this moment where you're like, "Hey, babe, look, it's the first. I think I found the first picture of us meeting." And she goes, "No, we met a year before that. We were already married at that point, and that's the woman you had the affair with." And you told me you found her unattractive when I confronted you about it, and you said, and then you mistake her for me. Like that moment, like that is
so bad.
That's like reality. That's like 90 Day Fiance craziness. That's that like reality dating show horror. And he actually did it.
Of course.
Yeah. And I got news for you.
A rake.
It will. Yes, right. Thwack. He is. And I have to say, there is no point. I wasn't surprised that he did something like that. It was amazingly sort of poetically stupid, though. It was that special that it almost felt fictional. It was so nail in the head. It was like a moment in the Law and Order version of a case that they show where you're like, all right, they jumped the shark. They kind of pushed it. That's a little much. Right. Not surprising at all. And on the other side of the spectrum, we had a similar moment with Chuck Grassley. I don't know if Carol, thank you so much. Chuck Grassley wants to say soon he'll be able to add convicted civil rapists to his list of horrifics. Yes, it's and the other women who've come forward saying, look, I can't press charges because too much time has passed, but this happened. And I'll stand like that I feel for them as much as I do for E. Jean Carroll in a lot of ways. In some cases, it's out of their heads because they're from another state or they came in to testify because of just gross. And then watching him watch the Access Hollywood tape and then saying, that's the way it's been with stars for a million years. What? Unfortunately or fortunately. And he says, I think the order of unfortunately versus fortunately was very telling with Trump. You know what I mean? Unfortunately or fortunately. Fortunately, for guys like me, they let you just do whatever you want. Unfortunately, that came
by the whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the big moves on the other side of the spectrum is this is finally it. This is the Hunter Biden day, man. They finally got him. This is the judge.
Goodness. He's just been running around out there.
They're painting, having consensual sex, in some cases that he allegedly paid for, with other adults, as opposed to just randomly accosting women in dressing rooms and parties and whatever, and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and going, whatever. What he just likes him a little young. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, this is the big news drop was going to be that we've got a whistleblower that says they are slow walking an investigation into the possible influence peddling of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden around things where money may have changed hands in exchange for something that hasn't happened yet and doesn't look like it's going to happen, which is giving China hegemonic power over the United States. That's the part. I just have to put that like up on the baffling shelf. Like everybody has to have a baffling shelf in their home where they're like, where does this go? I don't even know what this is. Just put it
they
up
always
on
they always slow walk these things. Like oh yeah, well, if you're going to do that, how about we indict Bill Clinton for murdering this person in 1994 in Arizona?
The Clinton body count, right?
Yeah, it's like, go ahead.
Yes, right.
If he killed people, let's bring him to justice, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, exactly. Like, none of us mind. So
he's not our savior.
So Chuck Grassley and James Comer are the two kind of, they're the, Grassley in the Senate and Comer in the House are the two people pushing we've got to take down Hunter Biden because that's how we take down Joe storyline. That's been their aim. And Grassley put out a 1,000-page report a couple of months ago, which yours truly, I will say, breezed through, because largely a lot of it was just stuff he had released earlier with supplemental nonsense attached to it, none of which
like
meant
those blabbermouth
anything.
Articles that are like 4 pages long, but it's really just like the previous 8 articles that they've written about him pasted at the end of the one news item.
That's exactly right. Yes. And then a little bit of like narration attaching them because they were inadequate to actually make the case in the first place. So they're like, oh, I gotta spackle the holes in this a little bit with some story, that kind of stuff. And all the stuff that they accuse Schiff of doing, around Trump and all that stuff. They're just like, well, I guess all bets are off. Anyways, Grassley makes these, is constantly putting out this stuff. And where was it? I was on Fox News. He and Comer released this, and yet another paper alleging that Biden was engaged in a influence peddling criminal scheme to blah, 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 right? That whole thing. And that there are 35 Bidens involved, including Shemp Biden and blah, blah, blah. And this is the lead in it. He goes, this is part of the statement. We believe the FBI possesses an unclassified internal document that includes very serious and detailed allegations implicating the current president of the United States, Grassley said in a statement. The FBI's recent history of botching politically charged investigations demands close congressional oversight. That's what he said. Okay, so we know that they have Trump friendlies in the FBI that have been trying to either run interference for Trump in the first place or bring down Biden. And the idea that there is a memo basically where someone alleges something is immaterial to the existence of paper in the world. Nobody cares. Evidence. If you have evidence, then drop it. They've had this alleged laptop for 3 years now. It's all been posted online for almost a year. And what do we keep seeing? Pictures of Hunter Biden smoking in a bathtub. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
It's a little gross.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not a fan. I don't want
smoking in the bathtub.
Pictures.
Smoking in the bathtub. You don't think it's got a chance? Wow. Yeah. And the follow up was the beautiful part. This is on Friday, he was on Greta Van Sustren's show on Newsmax. And if you don't know, Greg Kelly, the most miserable man in news, who's on Newsmax, got bumped to a later, crappier time slot because Newsmax brought in Greta Van Sustren because they got some of Fox's cast-offs and they were like, we're going to kill it now. We've got gravitas. So he had he was on Greta Van Sustren's, and he says that he has no evidence to back his claim. She said, he goes, it is a very serious allegation. I wish I could say that I knew it was true or untrue.
Wow.
After
Alex, how can I say nothing in 12 words or less?
Yeah. Can I say gibberish attacks for 200, Alex? That statement alone, I think, sums up the entirety of all the news things you've heard lately about they're this close to the Biden influence campaign and the Biden criminal family and all that kind of stuff that's coming up, which is basically them just trying to patch over what Trump did while he was in office by just dirtying up everybody around, going, all politicians are dirty, almost providing him cover with this mythology that the Bidens who live in a relatively minor house are somehow socking away billions of Chinese yuan someplace so that he can spend it when he's 90. It's super weird. Anyways, I felt
so over this both sides garbage.
Yes. And so that statement, it is a very serious allegation. I wish I could say that I knew it was true or untrue. This is after he wrote a 1,000-page report. This is after they have done nothing but stand on, in front of any microphone they can and say, this is a crime syndicate, this family, and I have to say, I enjoyed that moment more than almost any other rake stomp fail that these guys have done. I just enjoy that. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Yes, we'll be back. So, and then the other one is, let me open this guy up. There we go. This is the This one hits close to Homer. Kentucky rioter gets harshest sentence yet, 14 years for attacking the police. Whoops.
That sounds about right. That sounds like about what you or I would get.
Yep. Yeah. Peter Schwartz.
I think we got 60 seconds, guys.
Thank you. They were gonna give him 4, and he ended up getting 14. And he's already setting up so he can get out, a couple of weeks early. I'm really sorry. I'm really very, very sorry. That was my not sure if I'm on the air version of Kevin Kline and Fish Called Wanda. It's always an issue.
So awesome.
10 seconds.
Thank you. And hold on. Where is it?
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Considering the former president, Donald Trump, who is for the record, a loser. A lifelong loser. Such a loser that he was born rich and squandered his fortune. If he had just taken the money his father had left him, put it in the stock market and sat on it, even including 2008 and the multiple drops in the market in the 80s and 90s, he would be thrice as rich as he is now. And that's the kind of person who writes a book on business that you want to read. This is the book, Do Nothing and Stay Rich, or Follow My Plan and Be a Broke Dummy, who has to borrow money from sketchy folks who will ask you to do terrible things to your country. There's a bit of news. We got the Proud Boys sentenced this week, 4 of them, including the leader, Enrique Tarrio, who they were all found guilty. It was a partial verdict because the jury is still out on some of the others. They're whether they'll hang or agree to harsher charges, whatever, that's still working out. But they were like, we already agree on these charges. You can tell them this if you want and start moving ahead. And one of them was seditious conspiracy. So the idea that nobody's even been charged with sedition, that talking point died this week. It's officially dead. And one of them was carrying a handgun in the Capitol. So the idea that nobody even had guns, it wasn't an armed insurrection, blah, blah. And I would argue that you're partly right, just like it's a partial verdict. It wasn't an armed insurrection. It was an armed, failed insurrection. It was insurrection somehow, like a coup. You got to throw attempted on there because coup in and of itself means it worked. But a Kentucky man was handed down the harshest sentence yet amongst those who've been charged in connection with the insurrection attempt in January 2021 on January 6th. Peter Schwartz, who surprisingly enough already had a criminal record, reportedly threw a chair at officers and sprayed them with pepper spray as he and his then wife, I don't know if she turned on him and they divorced, but it was then wife, stormed the Capitol. It's so sad that not only is he getting 14 years for assaulting police officers, but his wife left him too. Lawyers for Schwartz sought a sentence of 4 years and 6 months, arguing that his actions were based on a misunderstanding of what happened in the 2020 election. Right. But U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta felt that 14 years was appropriate, and that's what he got. Mehta said Schwartz was a, quote, soldier against democracy who participated in the kind of mayhem chaos that had never been seen in the country's history, not by locals anyways. Foreign parties, namely, I guess, the British had attempted it a couple times. But, okay. The outlet added some additional quotes from Mehta to Schwartz. You are not a political prisoner, the judge told him. The report says, you're not somebody who is standing up against injustice or fighting against an autocratic regime. As for Schwartz, he quickly addressed the judge prior to hearing the sentence, saying, I do sincerely regret the damage that Jan 6 has caused to so many people and their lives. Now, we talk sometimes, folks, about the non-apology apologies. I think the greatest recent example is Will Smith. Will Smith's tape one is one of the most horrifying examples of
that was really rough.
I apologize for how I've been treated because of how I felt. Just pretty awful. And it, these kind of statements stack right up there with people who say, I want to thank instead of just thanking people. Yeah. Because it's an ego. It's a statement of ego.
I thought about that. Why don't you just go ahead and thank them?
Yeah. Instead of saying, I want to thank the people who say like, whoever, Tom, Mary, and Sally are here from this day. Thank you for the work that you have done. And I hope everybody here is as grateful to you as I am. That's how if you want to thank somebody, that's how you go about doing it in a speech. It's not heavy lifting. It's way more personal. It's an actual connection with an actual human being. I still don't understand how I want to thank. It's one of those like knee-jerk phrases like at the end of the day. Like people just say it.
People in the chat are like, this is always irked Hal.
Yes, it does. It bugs the hell out of me. But look, this is very similar.
Consider myself co-irked.
I do sincerely regret the damage that Jan 6 has caused so many people and their lives. Okay, who's he talking about? The cop he assaulted? Or the other Jan 6ers? Or even himself? You see how that is a non-apology apology? And I would say to people in future, if you ever find yourself being awful, take care to phrase your apology when you're trying to not be awful anymore, to actually be an apology. It's so prevalent in MAGA town. They think, and here's the thing, I think they think they're getting away with it. Like this has so much of a wink and a nod to it, to like, I'm still fighting the good fight, QAnon, that no wonder he got 14 years. That said, it's been a bad week. Fan. It's been a Gators fan helped us out.
Gators fan super chat 6.66.
Oh yes, helping us buy the 666 Fifth Avenue. That's my dream building. We're gonna buy that, and I'm gonna donate an entire floor of it to the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter Shelter for the Homeless organization that we will start and fund in their name. They live there rent free forever. The offices are rent free forever. That's part of it. And I like the number of the building just to irritate the right people. So that said, it was not just a bad court week for the Republicans, and indeed it was. It was a bad we hate Biden, he's trying to destroy the country week, because the jobs report came out and everybody was expecting 180,000.
He's not destroying America?
He's not.
I've been telling people he's been tanking the economy and destroying America. Am I wrong?
Not if you're on the blaze, because you would be wrong in the facts, but you would be right in trying to keep your job. Yeah. Right? Because you'd have to play that out. Now, the lead up, I personally enjoy, you know how much I love the movie 2012. It's one of my favorite comedies that was a drama.
Was that the big disaster movie?
Yeah, it was an action drama until January 1st, 2012. And then it became a comedy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like Y2K.
Boy,
Y2K.
I gotta say, things looked really bad in that movie.
They did. Unless you were in a limo, because apparently that's the vehicle you want to outrun a collapsing Earth crust.
Why not?
Yeah, sure. Not what, you wouldn't get a faster car? Anyways, so going back in a similar fashion, going back and watching the naysayers the day before these jobs reports have come out, it's almost like a new series on Hulu or something that you can binge watch, which is all the Biden naysayers right before the jobs reports come out, or right before the Fed raises an interest rate. This is Biden policy, which it isn't, Biden policy tanking the economy on purpose to institute communism. And damn it, people keep getting jobs. 253,000 jobs added. Unemployment dropping to 3.4%. And black unemployment in the United States dropping below 5% for the first time in history. 4.7%. And again, Trump always wants credit for lowering black unemployment. You know, it was the lowest it was, you know, ever during his presidency. A, no, it wasn't. And B, it tracked exactly with everything else. There was no narrowing of it. If you're trying to remedy an unemployment rate that is out of sync with the general populace, and you want credit for that, then you would want those bars on the graph to narrow the distance between them, saying, okay, I'm not only bringing down regular unemployment, but I'm also bringing down black unemployment at a higher rate so that it is much closer and more in line with everybody else in the country. So there is, you know, everybody's evenly getting a chance at a job. Everybody, you know, these tax benefits, whatever you're touting, is working. And it never did. It just tracked right along with everything else coming out of what was effectively a spike out of 2008 and some ruffles, and then tracking back down to what's effectively a normal range. And now it's below the normal range. Non-farm payrolls added 253,000, 185,000 expected. By the way, Yahoo Finance is saying it 185,000. It was 180,000. People are ticking up their expectations, so they're off, you know, 1 percentage point off from being, you know, less wrong, I suppose. Hourly rate. I'm going to save it till after the break. It's too much good news. We got to take a break. We got to come back after this. Okay. It's too much good news to just blather out quickly. We'll be back right after this.
And I might have to play some guitar to bring it in with you.
Oh, look out. I insist.
Here it comes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so
good news guitar.
Blow this up so you guys can see it a little better. Boink. There we go. I'll move this over.
When he says it, he means. So, as you know, my wife is a public librarian. And today she had to go in to work. She's doing a couple of programs for the community. One is a drawing program, and the next, thank you, they're bringing in owls. There's going to be a zoo handler with owls. I'm so jealous.
And then she comes back with these weird scars and her head all bandaged.
Are you okay, honey?
Found the weirdest lighter I have, which is a mahjong or a go tile, like a go weird. Piece. Yeah, I got it.
I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna do my
China.
This is my stream angle where you see my junk.
Oh no! Oh yes! All right.
Yeah, right there. 10 seconds. People in the chat are highlighting me to say that the radio show Metal Shop was recorded in the 666 Fifth Avenue building.
Sparks radio program.
Oh wow!
Mega Worldwide.
Oh yes, and Johnny Million. Oh, he can't do that to me in Nerd Halen. We're in Dallas next week. All right, stop playing. We'll end up with a copyright strike because it sounds too close. It sounds
so good. Like, we're gonna get dinged.
That's right. Yeah, that was so close. Yeah, I nailed the note. I'm just saying, no warm up.
All right, so there's a lot more. I never get interrupted during the Twitch stream. Nobody ever interrupts me with anything. No sound effects. Nothing.
Nothing. Nobody even.
I agree. I'm a dope.
Nobody throws any stuff at you like that.
Nothing like that.
Oh yeah, that's normal. Oh yeah, that's normal.
Nobody.
Like that one.
Nobody jumps right in on that stuff. That's a shame. Nobody does.
Yeah, look. Feel that, buddy? Huh?
That's terrible.
Nothing like that.
Michigan gave us Motang.
Nobody interrupts you with that kind of stuff? Nope. All right.
Now that's the bar.
Dick? 2B? Hi, Dick.
1B.
Do we like Dick? Yes.
What? Yeah.
All right. What a mess. All right.
All right.
Love it. So, non-farm payrolls added 200. And by the way, twitch.tv/itsjohnny million. Subscribe today. Also subscribe to twitch.tv/HalSparks. And if you have Amazon Prime, one of those won't cost you a dime. The other one probably will.
That's right. And I always raid your program at the end of mine. So I'm leading into hell.
That's right.
On Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
We're coordinating ourselves. We're doing our best. So unemployment rate dropped to 3.4%. It was expected to go up to 3.6. This is the part that I think stands out. Unemployment, or the average hourly earnings month on month, up a half a point compared to up 0.3, which is what they were expecting. They were expecting it went 0.5% up month on month from last month alone, hourly earnings. And then average hourly earnings year on year are up 4.4% instead of 4.2%, which was expected. And the average weekly hours worked were dead on. 34.4 versus 34.4. Nobody, like, the wages went up and and more people went to work, but nobody lost their job in the process. Remember, everybody, it was all going to be about layoffs. Temporary layoffs, good times, right? And that's all we were hearing from the Glenn Becks of the world. We were, in the Fox News, I guess Fox Business side of things. Larry Kudlow. Larry Kudlow, the Foster Brooks.
Foster Brooks?
Yeah, that's my Larry. Yeah, Larry Kudlow is the Foster Brooks of business executive pundits, I suppose.
Foster Brooks is an underrated.
I agree.
Old school comedian.
This is true. And if you watch the old Dean Martin roasts, he was a gem whenever he would show up.
Him roasting Don Rickles, saying that he never saw him in person, but he's been having an affair with his wife. It's so great. And by the way, you're out of scotch.
So the overall, all of them have been saying huge layoffs. Everything's crashing. The dollar is dying. Nobody wants the dollar anymore, right? Which, by the way, can I just say, one of the reasons why you're seeing de-dollarization in certain markets is because the least trustworthy markets in the world are having trouble getting their hands on dollars because there aren't enough in circulation, and the more sound economies are using those dollars for transactions that actually amount to something. And so the what would effectively be the drug dealers and the underground oil trade and the human traffickers and all that kind of stuff, who oftentimes in history have been operating with these giant pallets of $100 bills that you always see in these giant busts, or in the movie Equalizer 2. Those folks are having a hard time getting their hands on dollar bills that are real, by the way, to pay their, for their exchanges, because, for example, the Chinese have been buying up US dollars because while they've been giving effectively yuan to Russia, they don't want any of them back. So they're basically pegging the yuan to the US dollar and buying up dollars and sitting on them to keep the yuan up, because it's not worth anything because they keep giving it to Russia and Russia can't get rid of it fast enough. So it's a fascinating aspect of this mythology. And I saw this yesterday. There's a big push again on this money printer go burr nonsense that that I saw a couple of like right-wing British YouTubers that are always kicking in on American and I guess to some degree UK social justice, anti-social justice stuff. That's their main gig. But what they went off on was this idea that money printer go burr, that there's, that inflation is happening because there's too much money in circulation and too few goods, and therefore, except for the fact that our money system in the United States versus what's happened to the UK monetary system are totally different, because they separated themselves from the EU and have an entirely new trade system that they have to build almost from scratch. And so things are just more expensive. Again, not inflation, just a rise in costs, because they used to get a cut on those costs because they were part of the European system. Now they're not anymore, and they're competing with everybody else who isn't a part of that system. And the European Union gets to buy certain things in block and gets to, trade across barriers as sort of like a generalized multilateral trade treaty within Europe. And they got out of that. So of course everything's more expensive. That's not inflation. That's a rising cost. And again, inflation has to do with the expansion or the contraction of the money supply, or the availability of goods versus an expansion in the money supply. And again, in the United States, everybody's been talking about, oh my gosh, during like COVID and post, the government printed a bunch of money and just dumped money on the system, and they dumped money everywhere. Okay, they printed money and put it into the system to make up for a gap caused by COVID. A gap that is at median estimate $20 trillion in lost revenue, income, and worth. And we patched it with $6 trillion worth of stimulus. By the way, staggered out over the course of 2.5 years, when the loss came almost in 10 months. And you cannot patch a $20 trillion hole with $6 trillion. You can't do it. That if there were too many dollars in circulation and inflation was caused by a glut in the money supply, the dollar would not be worth $1 right now. The dollar is worth over $1. Find me a place where there's too much of something and you can't get rid of it fast enough, where the price of it has gone up. I don't understand that economic theory. I don't think anybody who talks about this stuff can explain it, because it's nonsensical. We have a mix of supply shock, leftover effects of COVID, and the fact that the U.S. economy has blazed back faster than much of the rest of the world, and therefore the American consumer, as tough as we may have it in our own world, has it easier than a lot of the rest of the world, and therefore has had more access to cheaper goods quicker. And that's why every time, and we see this again and again, this is much like the jobs numbers, the day before the consumer confidence numbers, or how much consumers are spending numbers, come out, they're all like, it's doom and gloom. We're headed into a recession. People are not spending. Nobody's shopping. Nobody's, you can look at Amazon's, year over year compared to early 2021 is down 14%. By the way, when there was still no vaccine available to the majority of people, and we were still largely at home. So again, pretending COVID didn't happen.
Is anybody, I still wonder what I was doing sometimes during those COVID years, when I think back and I'm like, but why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I'm like, oh yeah.
Right. Because no one was doing anything. That's why gas was $1.86 a gallon, because no one was driving. It was, again, high supply, low demand. All of Trump's bragging points during 2020 that he insists on using are all based on low demand. Cadavered demand, destroyed demand, because everyone was at home trying not to die. And that's, by the way, not something economically you want to recreate. You're not going to be able to bring that system back. and trying to is insane. And it would sound like, if anybody would even argue this, like a depopulation scheme, which is what Alex Jones and all the Trumpies are always warning us, that the UN and the WEF and the whomevers are going to kill us all, right? That's the whole thing. They're going to depopulate the earth so that they can, live their gold coin Ayn Rand existence in a hollowed out mountain in Denver, Colorado.
Are they taking requests?
For what? Oh, like who?
Yeah.
No, no, it's just anybody that isn't them, I think, is the theory.
There you go. The not me
right.
crowd.
It's a snag. Right. And I'm not worried, obviously, because I come from 4 royal lineages, according to my 23andMe and the family crests that I've discovered. So I'm good. I at some point I should be able to pull a sword out of a rock someplace. And claim.
That's what you want to call it.
It is what I call it, actually. It's funny because you bring it up. But the point I'm trying to make is that these folks are all talking about a system, even in terms of immigration, because next week, Title 42 expires. The Biden administration has sent 1,500 support troops down there so that other people can process. And by the way, it's not just soldiers. They're sending, asylum lawyers and that kind of stuff so they can vet people's cases. One of the when we come back, I want to tell you about the consequence of Title 42 in exaggerating the immigration numbers and effectively making the staging in Mexico, the Remain in Mexico camp, worse, drawing more immigrants to an area and creating an imbalance that we didn't have before Title 42 was put in around COVID, and we don't need to continue it because it's part of the problem. I'll explain it when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is the website. Sexy liberal gigs coming up next year. We're going to be coming to Chicago. I can't give it away yet, but get ready. It's coming. It's happening. It's happening. That's right. Mm-hmm. There is, hold on one second. Let me jump back to you. There you go. Johnny Millions on a Million.
I'm wearing my Orioles hat because they had a big win last night. Very
Did they?
excited about it.
That's
they beat the Atlanta Braves.
Amazing.
The best team in the National League.
I don't really follow lacrosse, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You should, just for the men in the shorts.
Is it? Okay. I didn't realize they wore shorts. Does everybody wear shorts? Isn't that the game? Isn't that lacrosse is just a game of like everyone in the stands, everyone involved. You have to wear shorts when you watch
the
it.
Referees.
I don't understand the rules that well. But I love sports
you have to
ball.
Wear shorts and you carry a fly swatter.
I do. That's right. How'd you know?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta close my drapes.
These webcams are on all the time.
Yeah, right. My phone is listening to me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing something up. Hold on. If I could find, here's the, and then,
And we got Philip coming in today.
yes, we do.
Siha in the chat just said, how are you typing? I never hear your keyboard clacking anymore. I got shamed into buying a quiet one.
Yes.
And Amandria says, Philip is a go at the top of the hour.
Excellent.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So Title 42 was the big story because basically Trump couldn't pass any immigration reform, just like infrastructure week. It was always immigration week. It was tax week. It was all of Trump's things that suddenly, are 2 weeks away. His healthcare plan, everything was just 2 weeks away, just that way over that hill. Just everything's just over the next dune. And so a lot of times he would resort to things that he had criticized the Obama administration and I guess every administration except him for doing, even after he himself had done it. And one of those things was issuing Title 42 and ordering that in place as a response to the COVID pandemic, knowing full well that once the pandemic ends, which he was in a bum rush to do constantly, even before we were prepared to, before we were prepared to deal with it, knowing though that date is coming, that one day is coming where Title 42 will end because it no longer legally makes sense. The World Health Organization ended the global pandemic this week, but the U.S. had ended our recognition of it as a national pandemic early on. Maybe were we 3 months now? Anyways, and that triggered the legal process that would eventually bring Title 42 to a close and a bit of a legal fight to try and keep it in place by Republicans who believe, it seems, as dumb as they are, some of them, that this somehow slows immigration at the border. And I would argue that it does no such thing. And the Republicans that know it doesn't work and know it has zero impact on the actual number of human beings crossing the border, which has not shifted in any major way in the last couple of decades. What it does do, what Title 42 does do, is create an automatic send someone back to Mexico reflex in the legal system. And that person tries again. And then they try again. And then they try again because their rejection is not complete and they believe they can get through. And they haven't got a mark on them necessarily because they haven't been through a legal process. They haven't actually been able to give their asylum claim. They haven't actually been able. So technically speaking, they think, well, if I just get through one of these times, then I'll get, a sponsor and a lawyer and get my asylum claim heard. And therefore I'll get in the country, or if it doesn't work out, they're just going to fly me back to South America or wherever they've come from, which is what normally happens. Title 42, again, not really impacting anything during 2020 when it was put in place, simply just a way of kicking, I guess, any immigrants that come into the country out of the country, which Trump wanted to do. Like, oh, we can use that now because COVID's happening, but not because it was going to actually save lives or impact the general number. There are two things that occurred because of Title 42. It raised the number of recidivist crossings to make the number starting in January of 2021, especially, look way higher than the actual number of people coming into the country. And so Trump's been selling this, it's 5 million, 7 million, 13 million people because they're going on one person crossing 5 times. And they're counting that one person as 5 people. And they do it repeatedly. And then they do the Trump math thing, which is if the number you think is 5, it's probably double that. So and that's what they've been doing the entire time. But there are two lay-on effects that have occurred because of Title 42 that do build up over time and would create a secondary problem, which is why it's a temporary measure and why you don't want to keep it in place, is because effectively in a couple of places where there have been normal crossings, where over the years, this is mainly where people will try to cross into the United States illegally, there becomes a huge infrastructure of people trying to cross. The cartels show up. If you're going to cross in mass, this is now an unofficial port of entry because NGOs and everybody who feel bad for people that the Trump administration, wouldn't process their asylum claims have shown up with food and support and all this other stuff. And so there are people who don't deserve that necessarily, but take advantage of it because there's almost this minor city created in Mexico just a little ways from the border. And then there becomes a small economy because of Title 42. If all these people had just come up, been processed, come through, and either been rejected or accepted, they would have to make a decision, because that substructure wouldn't exist, to either go back home or blend into Mexican society or find another route or some other option, which is what they have done historically up to this point. And what they will do again once Title 42 is gone. Because, again, this will disperse the entries as opposed to effectively hardening it in 3 places along the U.S. border. Mainly in like just across the Arizona border, in just south of San Diego, close to Tijuana, and then, of course, near El Paso and that region. These are the 3 areas that have built up because of Title 42. And on the Mexican side of the border, you have effectively these giant tent cities that have been built that are supported by a mass of NGOs. Again, well-meaning people trying to save lives, as they should. That because of the enormity of people not being able to get in the United States, be processed, and again, either sent home or sponsored inside the United States, which would process that person through. This person is cycling through multiple times, being picked up, effectively bussed straight back to Mexico to try again. And the Republicans know this. They have benefited from the high recidivism number and the illusion that the actual number of human beings crossing the border is enormous compared to any other time in history, which it is not. No one in this country, if that were the case, there would not be more job openings than there are workers. The wage growth we've seen would not be true. If the millions of under-the-table workers that Republicans allege have come in during the Biden administration in the last 2 years actually were part of the economic structure of the country right now, it would show up materially in a wage drop. Don't believe me? Look at Mar-a-Lago. Trump hires undocumented people and has in the past hired undocumented people at Mar-a-Lago. Because of the eyeballs on Mar-a-Lago these days, post-presidency, he can't. But there's a lot of places around there that damn well do. But they don't have enough of them because they're not getting across the border. Once Title 42 ends, the clamor is from Republicans that this is going to cause a huge surge at the border. It's going to be a stampede. It's already an invasion. It's going to be a disaster. That is not the fear that Republican senators have at all. Republican senators who have 6-year terms instead of 2-year terms and have to ride out a longer arc, and their story year to year has to pay off on a bigger scale than somebody who, I don't know, that was 2 years ago. We're dealing with something else right now, which is how Congress gets elected. Those folks know that what's going to happen when you repeal Title 42 is a momentary spike as you process the people that come through, and then the numbers are going to continue to dwindle for the next 2 years leading into the 2024 election cycle. And that's the problem that Biden, that is presenting them with. Because if you could hold on to Title 42 till the fall, that arc and drop isn't as significant going into the election year. But if you end it now, the arc and drop happens and it's old news. By the time we get around to next year, we're back to what's effectively the Obama-Biden policy that they had towards immigration, which was one of the lowest numbers we'd seen in years. And that's what Republicans fear. That's why they want Title 42 to hang on as long as possible, because it gives them the illusion of a mass, it's the caravan myth writ large. Once you process the people that are in that area just over the border in Mexico and you say, yes, you can come in, no, you cannot, those people have to find other options. And if they try again, there are bigger consequences. Under Title 42, they just drop them off. They don't even process. Just get them back. Just remain in Mexico, you're out. And in the process of doing that, of ending Title 42, the number is going to drop. It's going to go back to what's effectively below 2017, 2018 numbers that Trump himself brags about. And just like black unemployment, which is at a historic low under Joe Biden, specifically, the immigration numbers are going to drop the same way, and another talking point will die. that's my prediction, and I'm sticking to it. I've argued this for a bit now, and I've been pretty darn right on this. Anybody wants to go look up the recidivism of crossings statistics, and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Say it, I'm going to look it up.
That's right. And joining us next hour, our dear friend Philip Bittner, who's in Ukraine. Lots happening there, including after the false flag, Russia punching itself in the face with a firework on their dome the week before their big May 9th celebration or whatever. We'll talk about that when we come back. And of course, the Wagner Group. They've got enemies. And most of them are Russian. We'll be back. And we'll get Phil in here in a second.
The Amandria said he might be like 5 or 10 minutes late. There's some stuff going on.
Not a problem. Yeah. So let me try. I'll bring something up. Okay, let's take this out.
Oh, by the way, chat people who can see this shirt was designed by Sean Stuckey. He does all the convoy art and all of the album covers that you see on Spotify.
Nice.
He is the man, Sean Stuckey.
Cool. Well, is he reasonable? Because I have some logo stuff that I need done, and it's just outside
he'd be
my.
To help you out. He's more than reasonable.
Thank you. Okay, cool.
I'll shoot you his info.
Okay. I'm opening up some of the other articles that I have. And hi, chat room. Hi, everybody. Okay. The Leopard tanks arriving. Yes, there we go.
Leopard tanks sound horrible.
Yeah. Isn't it like, you ever seen the pictures they take of like Black Panthers because they're leopards, but you can actually see their spots?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like when the light hits them just right, which, is fascinating because you're like, are there animals that can see the spots no matter how hard the leopard tries, Jesus Christ. And like mountain lions being what they are, and obviously the color of brush, don't have to be, tan to hide in the dark because the ground is the same color. So they blend it. They don't have to, they have not evolved to have Black Panthers, black mountain lions effectively in the American West or whatever, because it was never necessary. Whereas like deep jungle canopy required, even during the daylight to blend in as a shadow. Yeah. And just the fucking, what a scary animal. Like they're gorgeous.
They're so badass. Jesus
Christ. Just imagine the terror of somebody, just alive now, even if you had a gun on you and you were prepared and you're with a group of people and you had guides. And imagine being in like a loincloth and just discovering that like,
right?
Let's see, when I'm running from something, it's best if my junk isn't bobbling around because it tends to get snagged on thorns. I think I'm going to wrap it in some flesh. Yeah. From an animal skin that I took. Oh, great. Now I smell like dead animal and everybody's coming after me. All the scavenger cats can smell me a mile away. Terrific.
Thanks for nothing, scavenger cats.
Yeah. Thanks for nothing. I want to marry you.
Late for what?
for not being pregnant.
Yeah, no, she's crazy. She is totally nuts.
Oh boy, that's never good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm texting
We're coming back in 20.
Sean's info.
Thank you. Cool.
You have your notifications silenced.
I do. Because I'm doing a show. I'm doing a show.
Notify anyway.
Oh, you bastard.
I did not.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
Well, I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
We are waiting patiently for Philip Ittner to join us. He'll be with us in a few minutes. It is always the struggle is real. Getting someone on the show from Ukraine while so much is going on, especially how many. I think at my count, Johnny Million, and your count might be different than mine. We'll see. There have been 6 world-ending, we're in World War III, the nukes are going to fly moments that I can count since last May.
Right.
Yep, since last May. If you listen to the tankies and the, peace at all costs, as long as the cost isn't Russia leaving, which is amazing to me. I still can't, none of them ever... The people who we need negotiations and talks, none of them bring up the idea that Russia could just leave. They could go back to the 91 borders. They could have a personal relationship with the country and an economic relationship with the country. Yep, Phil's joining us. I'm going to bring him in just one second. But with all the stuff that's going on, and let me see, I got to be in the studio so I can do it. I can even hear him now. It's good. Let me bring this guy right here. Watching that kind of argument play out, we have seen multiple times. I'm up to here. I think 6 is my current count though, where they have said, any number of people have said, well, this is it. I mean, after Nord Stream alone, it was like, well, we're done for. That's that, right? There is no, and we're in World War III now. That's the argument. That's what we've heard multiple times, and yet, oddly enough, not so much. It continues apace. It is a regular aspect of the There have been no giant new movements that I'm aware of that have shifted the meaning of the war from a war of aggression by Russia playing out on Ukrainian soil to the chagrin of the Europeans and to the joy of tankies everywhere. Joining us right now, the anti-tanky himself, if I may say so myself, Philip Ittner.
Hello,
and
Philip Ittner.
How are you?
Hello.
Yes, and sounding good.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
That's okay. You're a little late, a little tinny, but we'll work it out.
I was at a coronation party. So
that's right, because you have dual citizenship.
We have a new king. That's right. I'm British, so I was celebrating the new king.
You're already answering one of the questions people put out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you?
What's your opinion of King Charles? Huh? Sexy? Would you or wouldn't you?
I'm not a huge fan of Charles. I
Mary Kill.
I liked his mother. I liked his mother very much. I thought Elizabeth was an amazing.
If I had a nickel.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I look forward to William as king. That'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting era. We'll see how long Charles lasts on the throne.
Charles is not going to last long on the throne. I don't think he's already in his late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s.
Oh, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he
looks good though.
Well, he looks like he keeps looking like himself.
He looks like who he is. But
right.
we'll see what happens with William. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not so much a fan of the monarchy as an institution, although I do see some benefit to it in Britain.
Sure.
I was mostly a fan of Elizabeth II. So
right.
We'll see. But
well,
anyhow,
especially
it was a nice ceremony, and we all got together and watched it. And yeah.
Yes. My girlfriend was very upset that we didn't see it because of the time. Like we woke up too late to watch it or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'll see it later or whatever. When they add the cartoon mice in around the carriage, that's when I'll watch it or whatever. Anyways, lots going on. Not the least of which is obviously since the assassination attempt on Putin's life, with apparently a kite with bottle rockets glued to it. The war has launched into an all new phase where Russia has just been sitting on its hands most of this time and not really going for it. And now, oh boy, they're like what Fred Wolf in Dumb and Dumber outside the phone booth. Oh, I'm getting mad. I almost liked it. Oh, get off the phone. The read from the rest of the world, I don't think it played out the way Russia thought it would, per se.
If it was a false flag, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even look in the last 72 hours or whatever it's been since the drone attack on the Kremlin.
Yeah.
They've retaliated. They've been sending. We've had more air raid sirens in the last 72 hours, whatever it's been, than we had.
Shouldn't they just send back bottle rockets?
Right, with kites with bottle rockets on them.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, and also, is it really retaliation? Isn't it just taliation?
Taliation, yeah.
It's just taliation.
Well, so anyhow, they shot. So they've been very active, and using the drone attack on the Kremlin as an excuse for escalating their attacks.
Right.
But just today we found out that they fired off one of their big, so nasty hypersonic missiles. That's right. Kinzhal missiles.
The Russian Kinzhal KH-47 hypersonic missile. Which they've been engineering. Right. From our stuff. Go ahead.
And what happened was it got shot out of the sky. First time it's ever happened. A hypersonic missile was intercepted and shot out of the sky. Guess what was used to shoot the Kinzhal, this really nasty super weapon that the Russians have developed? What was used to knock it down? Well, it was a U.S. Patriot missile system.
That's right.
They shot it out of the sky with a Patriot missile system that we gave to them. So,
that's rough. That's a rough one. Yeah, right.
Bye, Russia.
Yep.
Yeah. We're not skipping you anymore.
Right. And again, that was their big dog. So that I was going to ask you about this in particular, but they actually found the parts of it because it didn't ultimately, I guess, detonate either. It just fell apart. It was a Kinzhal air-launched hypersonic missile. So it was launched off of a plane.
Tupolev or something, yeah.
Right, yeah. Which is interesting because it has to start slow and build up speed, which is kind of counterintuitive to those kind of a missile because you want to either launch them from overseas or far away inland, like a nuclear hypersonic missile is the idea, where they can they travel they're up to speed so fast that by the time they get within range of whatever you have, they're already traveling too fast. And I guess the Russians don't even know how their own missiles work, which is really stupid. Anyways, that was a fascinating aspect of it. And I know, like I said, they've been talliating for the last 48 hours, but the general consensus that I can find is that nobody bought it.
No.
Even the tankies were holding their nose while trying to.
Again, even if it was a false flag, because it is still possible that it was Russian, anti-Putin partisan guys.
Sure.
Not sure if that's the case. There's a lot of weird stuff about that attack, but it certainly wasn't the Ukrainians.
Right.
It certainly wasn't authorized by any Ukrainian authority because it doesn't make any sense. So, but they've been using it as an excuse to fire back at us, and now they use their big nasty. I am actually a very member of a very small club. I actually am an eyewitness to a Kinjal strike in Odessa. And they're scary. They are scary because it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was a massive impact, and it was felt throughout the vibrations, and the air blast was felt throughout all the city. So they're nothing to joke about, the Kinjals. But now that the Patriots here, they can neutralize that threat. So
it was shot. This one was launched from a MiG, and again, the idea of launching one, maybe they have bigger ones, but those are only going to move slightly slower. So if the Patriot can take out one of the lighter, faster ones, because they're all hypersonic, almost all rockets that leave the Earth are hypersonic at a certain point, and which is funny. That's just true at a certain point. So that phrase gets blown around a lot, right? You could argue that like bullets are hypersonic because they break the sound barrier and that they're going, above.
The difference is this strikes at hypersonic speed.
Yes, exactly.
Impact is traveling at hypersonic speed. So you might get an initial velocity of a bullet or a launch of a missile that does go hypersonic. But generally, the new technology that all countries are developing hypersonic weapons. The Russians just have been kind of more public about what they've got.
Yeah.
And they've, tried to intimidate everybody with what their new hypersonic missile systems are. It's basically this new technology that allows munitions to actually travel at hypersonic speeds, the duration of their flight, and then the impact going at that speed, which is why Odessa, when I got hit by the hypersonic missile, it was such a bizarre thing because it had a completely different impact signature than anything I've ever been shot with. So,
well, let's take a break. We'll be back.
Not a joke.
Yeah, no, not at all. But they're also
we got a defense. Patriot
exactly.
Defense, so
when your giant, not a joke device gets shot out of the sky by Ukrainians trained using American gear, and the Patriot, while great, is not even the top of our tech anymore. That's the scary part. So we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. More Philip Bittner and questions from the chat room for him at infotainmentwars.com and of course at twitch.tv/HalSparks. If you subscribe, it doesn't cost you a dime. We'll be back. So, you have Amazon Prime. I messed that up. Never mind. Who cares? Talking too fast and reading at the same time. Hold on. There is a Spravdi. And how you doing otherwise, friend?
Yeah,
good?
Okay. I've got a couple of irons in the fire, as it were.
Okay.
I gotta figure out like Patreon and Venmo and that kind of
yes.
stuff.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. We'll talk about that. I'll help you set up all that stuff.
Yeah. Throw me a DM sometime.
Throw me a bone here.
Because I gotta get that figured out.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Excellent. Okay. And then. Okay, got it. All right. I'm trying to open some of the sites that I have. Yeah. There are, where is it? Yes, yeah, in Russo, there we go. Hold on.
Chat says that Facebook can't hear Philip. I don't know if there's anything that can be done.
Facebook can't hear him?
Yeah.
There is no reason why that would be true. Philip, can you check for me?
Test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, it all goes out the same way. I don't know why that distinction would be. It's not stereo or anything. That's very odd. I'm gonna. Yeah. Who can
back
say?
In 20.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chicago.
And Prilipin, the guy who they had another car bomb.
Yep.
That guy, we'll talk about him some. Yeah, because I'm not as familiar with his stuff. I mean, he's he's one of. Yeah.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. There's been a lot going on in the news in Russia, essentially, partly because of this. Like there's always supposed to be this trigger point. There always seems this moment where we're this close. It's World War III. This is it. It's the last straw. Russia's had it. And you've said, Phil, that during this last little bit, they have been, talliating. They've been launching stuff at a much higher clip in response, allegedly, to this thing that went on.
Right.
This alleged attack. The issue, I suppose, is that even Prigozhin isn't buying it. So the video, when you have a video that is very well shot and in wonderful color, and that tracks the incoming drone thing or whatever that ended up, the kite that ended up striking, and you've got great footage of that, but it's not getting anywhere near the coverage of Prigozhin complaining about a lack of ammo. I would suggest that that's a problem.
Well, yeah. No, sure. I mean, this whole thing with Prigozhin is just more of what we've been talking about for months now. Mm-hmm. Putin can't get involved directly, so he's got all of his guys on the level beneath him squabbling amongst themselves, ultimately to determine who's going to get thrown under the bus,
right?
And who's going to get to be Putin's, viceroy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing with Prigozhin. I mean, there's a reason why Prigozhin was allowed to openly name Shoigu and Gerasimov, the heads of Gerasimov, the general in charge of the war effort here. Shoigu's the Russian Minister of Defense. You don't talk smack in public about those guys unless you have approval from the Kremlin, from the very top. Otherwise, somebody gets arrested and thrown into jail in silence. So that's clearly being allowed, and it's the same thing we've been talking about for months now. It's Putin can't be involved directly, because then if it goes wrong, as it's going wrong now, he can be held accountable. As long as he is able to say, "Oh, it was my subordinates who screwed everything up," he's hoping he can escape unscathed. But that means that the guys on that secondary level are going to be fighting amongst themselves.
It's so
ultimately he's screwed. I 100% believe it. But if you're in his position, he doesn't have a choice. He's painted into a corner.
Right. So again, I guess crazy strategy is better than no strategy at all in this particular case, and he's painted into a corner, and eventually the only thing he can use as a salvage point is blame. But I just don't see it traveling very far. It's just weird to me, especially when it looks like they're going to end up, taking Crimea in the near term, in the next few months, even by the end of summer, something along those lines. If that happens, there is no point where he can't offload that blame onto any of these people.
But also, I mean, he can't just walk away.
Right.
He's stuck. He can't abdicate. He can't just give up the job and go away, because if he does, then he will be seen as, the blame will be with him. This way, the only card he has to play is, it wasn't my fault. My guys let me down. And so I've got to find a scapegoat. That's the only card he's got. That's it.
Right.
So it's not like he's being shrewd or anything. It's not like a really well thought out plan. It's the least awful of options for him.
Right.
So, that's what he's doing, clearly.
Right. Do we have questions already, Johnny Million?
We do.
Okay, excellent. Let's grab them before we get to the first break, so we can get to some of them, because I have my own list, but I want to make sure we get more of those in too.
Right on. Real quick, I can knock this one off. How many languages do you speak, Phil? That's from Julie Palmer in the chat.
Well, arguably, I hardly speak. Well, I speak Russian.
Sounds like not even one.
That's the only other one. English.
One. No, I've heard you speak other languages.
My Russian it's passable. It's conversational level. Being a Californian, I speak a little bit of Spanglish. That's about it.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't counting on all this modesty, Phil. All right, try to be a little more brash when you answer the upcoming question.
Yes.
John G in the chat asks, are there any incendiary attacks in Kiev?
Well, this week we had a drone shot out of the sky right over Maidan Square. Now it turned out actually it was a Ukrainian drone that had gone rogue. But that was pretty amazing because it was like right over the center of Kiev. And we've had an increase of attacks since the Kremlin attack. So yeah, we're getting attacks here in Kiev. There are attacks in Odessa, Kherson, Kharkiv.
Do you know? Maybe it's a timeline thing, Phil. But do you know whether they canceled Putin's his little gathering that he has on May 9th? They're not going to have it. He's not going to have his little audience before or after the strike. I think it was before, right? That he was
before. They were already talking about they'd already canceled the May 9th celebrations and the victory parades and all the rest of it down along the border with Ukraine, that border region along Ukraine. But then I want to say it was about a month ago, they announced that May 9th was going to be greatly diminished. They'll still do something. They're still got Red Square going on, but it's not going to be anything near what it normally is. So, and again, this comes back to the point that we have to understand in the wider world outside of Russia is just how important May 9th is to them. That's why Prigozhin is saying he's going to stay in Bakhmut until May 10th, because for him to pull out of Bakhmut prior to May 9th would be a massive disgrace and really a scandal. The Second World War is transcended history. It's religion in Russia. So it's a big deal for them to be scaling back May 9th festivities, celebrations, commemorations. So big deal. A real big deal.
Right.
But they're still gonna have something. I mean, those stands are out there on Red Square.
Yeah, they were visible, like the big TV stands, just like any normal parade setup. They're visible in the video that's circulating. And interestingly enough, the cameras that are mounted nearby, because they're preparing for this big spectacle, were able to catch better footage of it than, say, your average CCTV stuff. Which I think is also very telling and leans people in the direction of it being a false flag and ultimately ridiculous. Meanwhile, that video of Prigozhin walking around dead Wagnerites and pointing at them and saying they the people that don't provide them with ammunition will have their guts eaten in hell and that kind of stuff, and using the F word for gay people for Soyuz and that kind of stuff, which is, again, really common in Russian swearing, but at the same time, saying it of the military leadership is definitely, it can't just be ignored as a reality.
No, absolutely not. No. And again, it's the public, it's playing out in public. So this dispute, because you can't blame Putin. So Putin has to have somebody running interference so that he seems above it all. If the Tsar only knew, is the saying. It can't be the Tsar that screwed up. It's got to be his deputies that betrayed him. So that's what we're seeing happening.
Right.
100%. That's what Shoigu was all about. He should not. I mean, if any standard Russian citizen were to take to a platform and criticize Shoigu or Gerasimov or Prigozhin, they would end up being, there would be a knock at the door and they would be chucked into, some sort of detention. The fact that isn't happening,
or a chipper shredder.
There's some approval.
Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to have. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to have more questions for Phil. And then obviously there is constant action happening every single day, and there is definitely a heat up happening. And it's anybody's guess when the actual official offensive will begin. I mean, there's an argument that it already has. We'll talk more about that on the other end, but it does not look like Russia has any defense. They are just locking into the positions they have. We'll be back right after this. Yeah, I'm trying to find there's a lot of the footage of them like tracking drones and whatnot. But yeah, where is it? Did
you see also, by the way, did you see this thing with this Peruvian American tanky in Kharkiv?
Yes, the dating site, the incel dude. There's so many of those guys that are really interesting that shift gears. That if this was the 60s and 70s, the idea would be that you'd have a guy who works at a local plant or has a job, at some business nearby, but is ultimately a Russian sleeper. And eventually, when they tell him to, he starts doing what he's told. And it's really difficult because what they want is either espionage or sabotage. That's what you would have a sleeper for. But in the world of social media, sleepers are now like these, like the cat accounts, for example, that were running like crazy. They did nothing but cat videos until Hillary Clinton started running for office. And then all of a sudden they are nonstop right-wing QAnon sites. They just switched gears instantly.
With the one, whatever, the 400,000 subscribers that they've got because they love the cat video.
Yeah. And so they get reach within. Yeah, they can override the algorithm with a bigger audience than they would have if they had just started saying this stuff from the beginning. I find that there's a lot of that.
This guy in particular, frankly, I'm surprised this guy lasted as long as he did because he was spewing, clear Kremlin propaganda and also calling for like attacks on Ukraine. He was openly voicing.
I saw that guy's video, but I thought he was here. I thought he was stateside. I guess that was my assumption about, the Jimmy Dores of the world, that he just kind of, is on the same level. I mean, the talking points are indistinguishable. They say the same crap, but I just thought, and I was amazed at the number of supposed followers that he had. And I was like, okay, that's you build up this following on another theme, and then you hand over your audience. It's kind of like when a big corporation buys out a small one. There's a monetary impact of that. So, anyways, yeah, we'll talk about him when we come back.
I'm not shedding a tear to see him be arrested. I'm fine, and it doesn't. I'm not concerned about freedom of speech or press freedoms because they detained him at the beginning of the war, and then they released him, and they let him do his stuff, and he was clearly working. He was spreading propaganda, and I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did. So,
and one of the things he was.
I'm not concerned about him.
Yeah, well, one of the things he was also doing, I think, that some of them do that allows it to sort of tip into a different category is the whole idea of talking about where things are that he can see from where he is, and talking to other people in the country that are passing on like where troops are gathering and that kind of stuff, and talking about it almost like it's gossip, but it's legit, and it becomes code. I'm trying to find. Thank you.
Shocked they didn't round them up early.
Right. Mm-hmm. Are we back? Did I hear music or that was? I heard the music.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So the much ballyhooed red pill versus the blue pill versus the black pill versus white pills. There's all sorts of pills going around in the world of ideology, and the idea that the red pill is an analogy from the Matrix, where people would take the red pill and see the world as it truly is. And so people who have been red pilled are the ones who can see the truth, and the rest of us take the blue pill and go back to sleep, and we live inside the Matrix as one of its expendable stooges. And the idea is that if you're working for the Matrix, then you are the enemy, period, end of story. So the other ancillary aspect of red pilling is that anybody who isn't red pilled is not just wrong, they're violent opposition. They're eventually going to need to be put down because they're effectively just drones or whatever. So and the reason I bring that up is because there's a guy named Gonzalo Lira who is, I believe, Brazilian and
Peruvian American.
Okay, he's Peruvian American, and he's a dual citizen of United States and Chile, and he's been.
Chile.
Yeah. I didn't know he was living in Kharkiv. I thought he was in the States because his videos are pretty crap, actually. They're pretty. He's American for all practical purposes. The idea that he doesn't have a Chilean accent. He doesn't. He sounds like your kind of run of the mill grunty incel over the hill weirdo from the States. That's but he started his whole thing on as a pickup artist, and I wouldn't even say pickup, anti-woman, the idea of like negging women, and you can get beautiful women even if you're ugly, because all you got to do is treat them like crap, and women are always, and this is why they need to be told who's boss and blah blah blah. And so he was a dating coach who looked like he looked like I don't know that I would ever think this guy had a date. I am being so careful. And he called himself Coach Red Pill, which is there a douchier way of like labeling yourself? Anyways, so he was doing Russian propaganda.
Describing it has kind of given me a semi.
Yeah, I understand. And he was in Kharkiv. And I thought from his videos, because he was usually just up against sort of a drywall background in a crappy apartment, that he was like in Florida or something. That's the energy he gave off in his stuff. But he had a relatively big audience. Like he had amassed under this Coach Red Pill thing a rather large, sizable audience that he then started feeding Russian propaganda, direct Russian propaganda. And you were saying, Phil, that they grabbed him in the beginning of the war as a propagandist and let him go.
Yeah, they grabbed him, I want to say, in like June or July of last year. Mm-hmm. And it was a big deal in the tanky world because he suddenly disappeared, and they're like, oh, look, proof, Ukraine is a fascist police state. But really what it was is they dragged him in, and they said, what are you doing? Why are you here? What are you, why are you spreading propaganda in essence? But then eventually they let him go.
Right.
And he came out and said, I wasn't abused. I wasn't tortured. Nothing like that. I'm staying in Kharkiv, but I'm not telling anybody where I live. And he continued to spew anti-Kiev, pro-Moscow, pro-Putin propaganda. And he was left alone I was stunned that he was in Kharkiv and doing this, not even like considering the state, but like considering like people on the street, if they saw him in Kharkiv, would give him a beatdown. I was surprised he was walking the streets of Kharkiv.
Especially after it had been reclaimed. Yeah.
So, but today, apparently, it was decided that he had crossed the line and he'd broken certain laws. I mean, we have limitations on the First Amendment as well. You can't yell. The old thing is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Right.
Equally, at a time of war in Ukraine, they have decided that it is against the law for you to spread Russian propaganda or to openly call for attacks against Ukraine. And they determined that this guy was stupidly saying just that. He was spreading propaganda, and he was calling for attacks on Ukraine, and he was spreading the Russian narrative that everything is Nazi in Ukraine and it deserves everything it gets, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And they said, no, that's, you've crossed the line. So they've arrested him, and we'll see what happens. I've been monitoring it throughout the day because it happened today, or at least we saw the result of the raid and the arrest today. Because
I think he was streaming when they came in, or he started when he heard they were outside.
Well, they filmed the arrest. I don't know if there was streaming on the other side, but I'm sure the American embassy has been, contacted. He is an American citizen, but he also has broken Ukrainian law. So he's either going to go through a trial, and if he's convicted, see some jail time in Ukraine, or he's going to get just kicked out of the country. And we were discussing it at the cocktail, the coronation party I was just at, and the general consensus was it would just be wiser to kick him out of the country.
Right,
just kick him out, because turn him into a martyr if you throw him in jail.
Right. Agreed. And wherever he ends up, the support structure he has to recreate from scratch effectively, and then it becomes even more obvious if he's being paid by Russia or if he's just doing this because he's a scumbag. From that point on, without the support, does he keep pushing the same points once the payments dry up? And that's, and he would be violating certain sanctions if he was being paid as a foreign agent, as we just discovered with Godzi Kodzo and the Black Hammer crowd that were just arrested for, putting up fake local candidates in Florida while being paid by the Russians to do so. So that happened this week as well. And then there was another guy, Purpelin, right? Who I think that was his name. Purpelin. Yeah.
The Russian author who somebody blew up his car. His driver was killed. He was badly injured. He is an anti-Ukrainian, Russian nationalist writer. And who's to say who did it? But it's another instance of stuff going on internally within Russia, where this war is coming home to inside Russia. I'm not an advocate for attacking authors.
No, but I like that happened inside. That happened inside Russia, right?
Value targets. Inside Russia. I want to say it was outside of St. Petersburg, but don't hold me to that. It could be Rostov. While I do not advocate attacking authors, because I think there are higher value targets, that if you're going to try and get somebody, it could be somebody else, and I'm not a big fan of that kind of action. But
right, that's their business, because that was Russians.
There are lots of very angry Ukrainians right now.
Yes,
who want to retaliate. That's retaliation. That's true retaliation.
Right. Let's grab another question before we get to the break, Johnny Million, because I got a couple more minutes before we have to take a break.
Got one from Nick Rich, who suggests sanctions and penalties placed on Russia help Ukraine. Even though exports would cost more, would it benefit Ukraine if people bought their currency now to boost its value?
I am not an economist, so I'm reluctant to kind of come down with a really hard decision on that. I mean,
that's fair. They just want your opinion.
I think there are better ways to support the Ukrainian economy than shoring up the currency. I think providing or making sure that International Monetary Fund kind of large body support, whether it's a nation state or an international organization like the IMF, that's probably better. So if you can voice your support for Ukraine through those body, call your senator, tell them, we need to keep making sure the economy works. Other than buying, $10,000 worth of Ukrainian hryvnia, which is the currency here. I think you're going to get more
Yeah, the scale you would have to do it at, to make a real impact, is sort of out of the reach of most folks. But buying actual stuff and showing it online and that you've bought it and that kind of stuff, those kind of things help because that's genuine economic activity in there. And it was in Novgorod where Prilipin was hit.
Yeah.
And he, by the way, he was not just a writer. He fought, he was engaged in military action.
He's all sorts of things. He was, he's a nationalist. He's a Russian nationalist. He's an anti-Ukrainian zombie Russian nationalist.
Right, gotcha.
So, and I'm not surprised to Novgorod. Novgorod is a very nationalist area.
Right. Let's take a break. When we come back, a happy ending because beyond even the jobs numbers, we'll be back.
Did we get some good job numbers? I didn't notice today.
253,000 jobs created. They were expecting 180. Unemployment's down to 3.4%, and black unemployment is at a record low forever, 4.7%.
Oh dear!
And it's very hard to be. It's very hard to be Sean Hannity right now. It's very difficult.
Oh dear!
And I'm yes.
Or Republicans.
Yep, I'm boo fuckity hooing all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll still repeat the lie over and over, and people will believe it.
Oh yeah.
Sure, but they won't win the election.
Right. It's harder to believe. It just is difficult. I mean, look at all the stuff they were saying about Clinton in the 90s, and they didn't even have social media to do it, and it was still in everybody's dome. Still got elected. Still got reelected. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Coming back in 15 seconds.
And it's not going to stop either. It's
Thank
just
you.
The job numbers. More good stuff. Thanks, Chicago.
That's right.
More good stuff on the way. Yay.
Yay.
Hold on.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Love
it. Welcome. There's so much to cover. Sometimes for me, and I presume everybody has a little bit of good news or something that's, and just being here with us, Phil, and being safe, considering, we are, the nukes are in the air. Joshua has already decided that war games can be won, and we're all doomed, obviously. There's some news makes me feel good because, while not necessarily good news, it takes the place of the fact that it's in the news at all means that there's not enough awful to go around on a particular day. And that sometimes in the news can be good. And then I'm of course referring to the American couple that was arrested for smuggling going into Israel because they were trying to smuggle in 375 pounds of fruit roll-ups. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what the cost of fruit roll-ups locally in Israel is. I don't know how much you love them.
All I know is that every time I had a fruit roll up, I felt like my hands were sticky for the next 3 days.
Yes, absolutely. Apparently, it's because they're very popular in Israel, and a single pack of them can go for $6 because of inflation. So, they're 50 cents in the United States a piece by volume. 375 pounds of fruit rolls. Now, I think it was a mistake to try to sneak them in like packets of money on your leg by just licking them and sticking them layer by layer. I think that was a mistake, especially because both of them.
Lick them, dude. They'll stick to anything. They'll
you don't have
panels in.
You don't have to, but you're gonna.
And of all the countries to try and smuggle in something, Israel,
right? Into Israel's
midnight. Going to be Midnight Express. They're going to think it's a bomb, and
right, exactly, yeah. And somebody frisks you, and their hands get stuck. So yeah.
Or at least come back, covered in blueberry.
Yes, right. We can tell. We've already smelled your hands. We know you're guilty. So there is obviously congrats on having a new king. I suppose that's also part of it. Love the outfits.
Thank you.
The pomp, the circumstance, the circumstantial pomp, the pompousness, all of it,
and all the blue and gold, all the blue and yellow.
Yes,
Joe Biden and her granddaughter dressing in blue and gold, or
that's right. Yes, wearing Ukrainian colors.
Yep, the carpeting in Westminster Abbey. I imagine Putin sitting in his bunker beneath the Kremlin or wherever he is, absolutely fuming because of course he's desperate for Russia to be reestablished as a great world power and respected around the world. And the Buckingham Palace said, "No, we don't want any Russians here." So there was no representation of Russia. So Putin must be furious.
Yeah, and he lost Tucker Carlson this week. I mean,
he did.
That's how do you
tough week for old Vladimir.
Yeah, and Tucker was very he was essentially the beginner of the storyline. He kind of set everything in motion for the right-wing media sphere. He was the guy, whatever he talked about, within 24, 48 hours, it was everywhere. And now he grabs.
Never called me a racist? Has Putin never called me a racist?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So they don't know what to talk about right now, and it's obvious. And then the jobs numbers came out at the same time, and it's just, oh gosh, it's just so good. Yeah. And again, the false flag didn't work. So, and Johnny Million, let's grab a couple more questions before we run out of show, as often happens.
Sure. Stargal from Twitch asks, did Russia indeed use phosphorus bombs in Bakhmut?
They have been, there's international investigations going on into their use of white phosphorus. I don't know if they used it in Bakhmut. I believe they did. I know that they have used them in other places. Mariupol, I believe, was one place where they're accused of using white phosphorus. But yes, there are a number of international war crimes investigations going on into Russia's use of phosphorus weapons, which they should not be doing. So, and they're going to be found guilty because they have been using phosphorus. I just don't know if they used it in Bakhmut or not. I know that they used it in other locations, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they used it in Bakhmut. But they're criminals. They're war criminals.
There's a ton of footage of what people believe is white phosphorus landing on Bakhmut, and it looks it looks pretty obvious that they are. But the international war crimes groups will go in there and test the soil and that kind of stuff to verify it before they say so. But it hasn't stopped them, like you said, from using it in other places, nor will it stop them. That I'm talking to you, Chechnya. I'm talking to you, Georgia. I'm talking to you, Armenia and Azerbaijan. They don't care. They're never going to care. They're going to castigate us for not caring about stuff that we actually care about, and then they're going to not care themselves. That's the amazing part. Let's grab another one, Johnny.
Sure thing. Can you comment on this? The UK has been caught purchasing illegal / sanctioned oil from Russia via re-export from India. And apparently the article is called Inside the Murky Trade of Russian Oil.
Yeah, I heard about this. It's certainly possible. I know that, who else did this? Israel, I believe, has also done this, where they go through a third party that is not observing sanctions, and then that third party sells it onward to another country. Strictly speaking, actually, it's not even illegal.
And it deflate. By the way, it pushes down the price of Russian oil because it effectively keeps it at a wholesale price. The other thing it does, because it's still well below, the international amount, is that what India is doing largely in its sales, and I have to read the article to know if people are directly talking about this, but they are processing the oil and selling gas. They're selling diesel and gasoline, and specifically, which again, is not the same thing. It, again, buying it themselves at a lower level and then processing and selling the refined stuff at a lower cost because they're getting it from Russia ultimately undermines Russia's economic structure anyways. So that's why the rest of the world market is just looking the other way if it does bother them at all, which I don't think it does.
Yeah. And Israel even said, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Israel even said, we actually even checked in with like the State Department, and they kind of said, we're not crazy about it. But we're not going to stop you.
Yeah. And the site of that story, I just looked it up, is Global Witness, which is isn't it like an environmental front group effectively. And some of those have been, I mean, some of them are great about the idea. Some folks are just hiding, like the sanctions aren't doing anything. Storylines, which is very suspect.
It's been bubbling along. It's been bubbling along for a long time, but well, I say a long time. It's been bubbling along for the last handful of weeks. It's not a significant factor.
Right. Agreed. Let's see. Let's grab another one, Johnny, if we have one.
Okay, so this is from Facebook. Are the families that lose their homes helped to find safe shelter? I know many older people who don't wish to move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of infrastructure that's being built, kind of temporary or like semi-permanent in the less war-ravaged parts of the country. So yeah, 100%. People are being. When I was out in Zaporozhye about 3 weeks ago, I went to a community center for people who've been evacuated from Mariupol, which is all but flat. And they are getting, there's still a very strong sense of community. They're found housing, they're found, potential jobs, whatever that is, gig economy or whatever.
Right.
They're provided with supplies and there's a massive infrastructure for helping out Ukrainians who've been displaced by the fighting. So, it's as awful as it is, at least, the Ukrainians are taking care of their own.
Right. Cool. And Johnny, is that it? Did we get?
No, I've got a couple more here.
Okay.
This is from Twitch. What is the latest on the Wagner Group wanting to leave the conflict?
So Prigozhin came out within the last 24 hours or so. He put out two videos, one in which he was absolutely furious, and we talked about that, the swearing and all the rest of it, and naming names. But he also put out a video in which he said the Wagner Group was going to leave Bakhmut on the 10th of May, the day after Victory Day, because it would be scandalous for them to leave prior to that because of the reverence for Victory Day and that holiday. So they're not going to leave until then. But they have said Wagner is going to pull his troops out because our boys, my boys are not going to just throw themselves at useless, death, that sort of thing, which is totally contrary to actually what they do, because they do send their boys just abject death. But here's what's also interesting is that already Kadyrov, the Chechen leader, who is also a warlord, who is one of these second layer guys below Putin, who can play in this game of boyars and whatever fighting beneath the surface of Putin. Kadyrov has said that he will take over the fight in Bakhmut, whether or not that's true or not, and we actually see Chechens return in significant numbers to the fighting and in Bakhmut, we'll have to wait and see. But I thought it was really interesting that Kadyrov would come out with a statement against Prigozhin, saying, "Well, if you don't have the guts to stay and fight in Bakhmut, we'll return and do it." The interfighting is going to get so much worse in Russia. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. So I'm all for it. Get me some popcorn and I'm good to go.
Yeah, I guess the irony is that there's very little that, Zelensky in the beginning and a lot of the messaging that they're really good at it. The Ukrainians are really good at trolling the Russians and doing all this kind of stuff. But there haven't been any of those messages in the last, say, couple of months, because the Russians have been doing it themselves. There's been so many videos. Yeah, it's bizarre. Anyways, like they're doing the job for them. Anyways, we're at the end of the show. I want to thank Philip Bittner for being here with us, and of course, staying safe. He'll be with me Wednesday on our show after I'm exhausted, coming back from another jam at the Whiskey on Tuesday, where I will be singing the dirtiest song of the '80s. At that one, and I'll give you a hint. It's a Peter Gabriel song. That's all I'm going to say. Johnny Million, you're awesome. Twitch.tv/It's Johnny Million to subscribe. And of course, Twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. Of course, you can support via Patreon, patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Keep us alive. Keep us going into the election year. We need your help. Join us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Flora says,
All right. Have a good week, guys.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Chicago. Yep. And yep. And appreciate you guys, Johnny and Phil. And Phil, we're good on Wednesday. And then tomorrow, if you have time tomorrow.
Shoot me a DM. If you want to do it tomorrow, shoot me a DM as to what's the best time. I just want to pick your brain about
you got it.
All these other apps and stuff that I can do to
to make this all happen. I agree. I believe, many people on here know, and our chat room knows that I believe in the multi-tiered approach because any one of them can go away at any given time. And putting all your eggs in one transient, internet basket seems like madness to me. So, yeah. Anyways.
Well, if you've got some time tomorrow, shoot me a line and we'll do it.
We'll do. We'll make it happen.
Gabriel song?
Oh, Sledgehammer.
It's got to be Sledgehammer. Yeah.
Sledgehammer. It is all sexual innuendo all the time. It's comically so, and yet done with this song where you could just kind of I don't know. There was not a bad word in the whole song. It's filth. Anyways, you guys are terrific. I will see you next time, and we'll see you later.
All right, see you on Wednesday, or if not before. All right.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Cool. Cheers. Okay, there we go. And we'll go to trends. Hi. There they go. They all vanished. Nope, it's not Shock the Monkey. That's about therapy. Oddly enough. Which was So Is Digging in the Dirt, which is another song, Peter Gabriel song I really like. Yeah. The video is fun too. I'll end up talking about it. I have a bit that I used to do in high school, and Johnny Million knows about it, where I would actually do, because I can manipulate it almost every muscle in my face, that I can do live the Sledgehammer video. You can have an airplane flying if you bring your blue sky back. All you do is call me. It's like face breakdancing. Yeah, it's filth. I'll be anything you need. Right? It's a weird talent to have. It goes part and parcel to being able to flex my lips. You know how some people can do like the chest thing where they can do their pecs like that, like I'm doing right now, but you can't really see because my shirt's gray. I can do that with my bottom lip. So it's a comedy thing. It's just my whole life. Yeah, that's why I can't do Botox. Why would I give that up? You can have a Big Dipper. Yeah, I'm like human claymation. Anyways, what a weird... Yes, can your Getty scare cats? Yes. As a matter of fact, I have a t-shirt that I made, Your Getty Scared My Cat, and maybe it didn't post. Maybe that's what it is. It's been around for a long time. I'll make sure it's up on there. Anyways, love you guys. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else, and I will see you on Monday. Yeah. And then Monday night after the show, so Monday night, I'm going to do the whole Trump deposition video. And then the town hall, I think, is later in the week. Because I just feel like if there's any content that deserves some breaking down, that's it. So that'll be the main part of it. And then, of course, our money show. And then Phil will be on Wednesday. Tuesday, I'll have no show because I have that whole sound check thing. And, and another thing.
I think people saw that loud and clear.
De-engineering. I agree. I'm a dope.
Again, the words are conditions.
Christopher Columbus. Christopher. Huh?
Free health care for illegal. Yeah, look.
Where's Dick? Hi, Dick. Do we like Dick? Yes. What?
Dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Action replays in magnified fortune. We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges. Where's Dick? Hi, Dick. Do we like Dick? Yes. What? I've been involved in the two greatest scams in American history. The Burmese executives. So this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese.
Like this, I'd probably feel 100%. Moon River. Whew. Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
De-engineering.
Piece of malware called Q-Snatch.
Yeah, no, she's crazy. She is totally nuts.
Oh yeah, that's normal. They said, oh,